New Zealand curriculum. And we've got Jaja who will be facilitating this for us. And later on, we're going to go out in breakout rooms to discuss a few things. So as Jaja has mentioned before, she's been teaching for the last 18 years. So the last decade was here in New Zealand. She's a primary teacher at Tawa Primary School in the Montessori unit. Yeah, so take it away, Ja.
Zoom 9. Okay, share ko lang po yung screen. Ayan. At kung may tanong kayo, just let us know. Nakikita ba ng lahat?
Yep.
Yep.
Ano ba ito? Ay, wait. Dali, may napindot ako. Ito pala. Alright, so New Zealand curriculum. So basically, ang gusto po natin pag-usapan is ano ba yung difference sa Pilipinas at dito sa New Zealand? At kung meron mang differences, paano ba natin ito maiintindihan? Ano ba to? So si Mai ang unang so ang New Zealand curriculum encompasses from 0 to age 16. Age 16. And so and then i-break down po namin yan. Merong early childhood, and then merong primary curriculum, and then yung secondary curriculum. So para sa early childhood, si Mai, invite po namin si Mai para magsalita.
All right. Thanks, Ja. And we also have Kay and Marian who are also in early childhood. So between the three of us, we will have different experiences as well as early childhood. We know from what Kay has mentioned earlier on, nasa kindergarten siya. And what about you, Marian? Narinig mo ako, Marian? Anyway, you can just do the chat message, Marian. And why I'm asking that one is because in the early childhood curriculum, there are different types of ECE centers. So for myself, I work in a Montessori early childhood center. So the approaches are very different, but we are guided by the early childhood curriculum, which is Tefariki, which is from 0 to 6 years. And some may be asking, di ba 5 lang kasi pagdating ng primary, 5 years old na. Legally here in New Zealand, you don't have to move your child to primary at the age of 5. They can stay in an early childhood until the age of 6. Some people are confused about that as well. So it's up to the early childhood centers to actually explain that to the parents. But for primary, of course, sometimes it's better for them to move at the age of 5. But anyway, yung early childhood curriculum, next slide, please, Jack. So it's called Tefariki, so that's actually from the mat. And because of the weaving of the different not philosophies, but principles and goals and strands ng Tefariki. So in general, as early childhood education providers, the vision is for all children to grow up in New Zealand as competent and confident learners, strong in their identity, language, and culture. And the approach is learning through play, and assessment is through narrative. So for early childhood parents, you may have received learning stories from your early childhood centers, and that's how the assessment is done. We can talk about that in depth later on, but for now we're just getting an overview. This is one of the maraming comments from parents na, bakit ganun, puro laro-laro lang ang ginagawa nila. And for me as well, when I came here in 2006, it was also a big shock for me working in an early childhood center, because it's like, it's that free play, but if you get to know the reason why it's play-based, we will be able to appreciate it better. Because in learning through play, children actually enhances a lot of skills, which is in the next slide.
Sorry.
Yeah, so those yung play-based curriculum, it supports thinking skills, interpersonal skills, intrapersonal skills, student agency and engagement in the smooth transition to school. And in primary, actually, they have already adopted the play-based learning about 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Is that
can I
right,
add
Jill?
something?
Yeah.
So, ang Tawa School for the past more than 5 years, maybe 10 years now, ang approach is play-based learning for the junior school. So that's from year 1 to year 3. And because of exactly what Mai is saying, because you want the children to love school, especially at a young age. Ayaw mo na at age 5 or age 6, hindi magsulat ka. Katulad sa atin, pinipilit. So we don't want that. We want them to grow into it. We want them to enjoy what they're doing. Hindi yung parang it's a required part of their life. That's not what we want. It's getting the children to enjoy it. So yan yung isang main reason also kung bakit play-based yung curriculum.
Yeah, with the learning, it should be internally motivated. It's coming from the children, the willingness to learn those things. But in saying that, though, sa early childhood, hindi ibig sabihin na laro-laro lang na walang hindi pinag-isipan kung anong gagawin. There are a lot of knowledge and skills and attitudes, which we call dispositions, that are being developed at early childhood. And those are the most important things, actually. What are the dispositions? What attitudes do we allow our children to develop so that they will become resilient learners? So on the next slide, we have, this is just the overview of Te Whariki. So you have those principles of empowerment, holistic development, relationship of family and community. Yun yung tawag dito, principles ng early childhood education. And as parents, actually, you have a big role to play in making sure that your children get quality early childhood education. You have to be engaged with your early childhood centers, be involved with the activities, be involved with the programs, talk to them, to talk to the teachers. Even sharing our culture is also important. That is being celebrated sa early childhood. As I've mentioned in the first slide, it's actually developing children to be strong in their identity, culture, and language. One thing that I can suggest, as well as coming from a professional perspective, is turuan natin ang ating mga anak matuto ng Filipino or whatever language you have sa Philippines, because that's very important in their brain development. And it's an advantage for children to be, bilingual, trilingual.
Yeah. Can I add, Mai? It's Kay here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm in kindergarten, so we have heaps of Filipino children.
Yeah.
So mostly, our kindy is more on, Fano Manaki, the pre-kindergarten. So we very, our priority is about being bicultural. So at the moment kasi yung mga bata na Filipino sa kindy is I talk to them, I speak to them in Filipino, and then we celebrate Filipino Language Week. We celebrate Independence Day. So turuan natin yung mga anak natin na maging, proud pa rin sila sa pagiging Pilipino. And then some children now sa kindy, because nagiging, what you call that? Nagiging, ano na yung Filipino sa amin. So some children, they learn din ng Filipino. So natututo rin sila mag-Tagalog.
Yeah.
So kasi yung iba kasi is like 1/4 Filipino na lang.
Yeah.
So, yun. Tapos inaalam din namin yung identity nila, and then, yun. Tinuturuan ko rin sila. Kumbaga, pati yung, it's not just also the language, pati yung culture natin. So, for example, naglalaro sila ng Play-Doh, and they were like making pandesal. So, yun. Parang naaano nila na this is a Filipino bread, yung ganyan. So, yun.
Yeah. And as parents, and the centers that have Filipino teachers, yung Filipino families are lucky. But for some centers who do not have Filipino teachers, again, as parents, then we can actually contribute to the learning of our children in New Zealand as well, you know, in terms of our culture, because New Zealand is very multicultural and that's already being celebrated. I attended a meeting ng managers a few weeks ago, and they asked me, why is it that Filipino families prefer to speak in English? So I have to explain as well our history as a country with regard to our language and all that. So it's good for us to share who we are as Filipinos. Sa school ko ngayon, marunong na mga bata kumanta ng maliit na gagamba, and parents know adobo kasi we have those cultural celebrations. So you could actually step up as well and say, how can I help the center? You know, as parents, that's really important, not only in early childhood, kahit sa primary. You bring yourself out there and say, how can we support the school, instead of just waiting for the school to ask us to support them. And I know that sa atin sa Filipinos, we are willing to help, but we are waiting to be asked. Let's do a reversal of that mind thought na tayo, we offer how we can help. To do that. So anyway, so those are the strands and associated goals ng Tefariki. So it's all about the well-being of your child. And if you're going to look at their belonging, the sense of belonging, that's very important. And it says children and their families feel a sense of belonging. So yung engagement nyo nga with the teachers is very, very important. And then I've mentioned earlier about learning dispositions, because our children may know a lot about numeracy and literacy, but if they haven't developed the dispositions, the right kind of attitudes in terms of learning na kailangan nila pagdating sa primary at saka sa high school, medyo mahihirapan sila. What I do notice with the New Zealand curriculum when it comes to early childhood, extreme kasi yung experience natin as Filipinos and here in New Zealand. For us in the Philippines, we are heavily focused on the cognitive.
Yeah.
Tapos dito sa New Zealand, it's more of the social and emotional development of children, which is really important because, you know, social and emotional competency is, you know, far more important with yung cognitive. I'm not saying na hindi importante ang cognitive, but they go hand in hand. But developing yung social and emotional competence of our children earlier on will give them better advantage when it comes to their education. Yun. And we're going to have some sharing of experiences later on. So when we have questions, yeah, we can discuss about that. Back to you, Jack.
Salamat, Mayi. Ano bang susunod? So, yan nga nabanggit ni Mayi na magkakaroon tayo ng sharing of experiences. So, we'll just give you this overview.
May tanong yata si, sorry to bother.
Tita.
May tanong yata si Mao.
Yes, Mal.
Yes, meron na akong question regarding din sa early childhood. I just really wanna hear your thoughts about home-based care. Kasi from what you were saying earlier, parang lumalabas na yung mga daycare, yung malalaking facilities or centers have more structured programs for kids. And now we're thinking na yung daughter namin will put her into a home-based care before mag-kindy. So parang gusto ko lang malaman ano yung thoughts nyo about it. Is may downside ba yung putting her into a home-based care wherein mas konti yung mga batang makaka-interact niya compared dun sa mas malalaking centers. Tsaka kasi I don't think there's a structured daily program dun sa home-based care compared dun sa malalaking facility. So parang napaisip lang ako kung dapat ba naming i-consider na ipasok na lang siya sa mas malalaking centers instead of a home-based facility.
Yes, your child is 4 months, right? About 4 months. Yep. Okay, yeah. Because for home-based care is also under, they're also following the New Zealand curriculum. So same din yan. When it comes to structure, it depends on how you define structure. Kasi yun din yung isang malaking, well, a lot of migrant families are thinking when it's structure, it's that this session from 8:30 to 9, this is what you're going to do. You know, from 9 to 10, this is what you're going to do. In early childhood, we don't have those kind of structure because it should be led by the children. Yeah, and then depende sa needs nyo. So what I would suggest for you, Mau and Romel, is actually visit different kinds of early childhood providers so that you will have a feel kung alin, which one works best for you. Because yung different early childhood providers also utilize the curriculum in different ways.
Okay.
For example, if you go to my center and you go to Case Center and then to, sorry, what's the name of the other one? Marian Center, it will be very, very different. So I always tell parents who come and visit sa center ko that you visit other centers and then weigh the pros and cons, which one works for you, which one doesn't work for you. And nasa personality din ng bata. It's really important for parents and teachers to really talk and know the child, because for some children, big settings work better for them. Others, they just like to have that small group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
I-share
Thank you.
share ko lang from experience nung naghahanap kami ng center. Ilalagay nyo na sila in how many months, Mau and Romel?
Around 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Oo, so medyo for us baka iba, no? Kasi nung nagsimula kami maghanap ng mag-aalaga kay TJ, we look around actually sa community. Buti nakakuha kami ng Filipino rin na willing na magbantay sa kanya in a short time, kahit 2 oras lang per day. And we were confident na okay rin sa kanya. Pero nung mag-3 siya, nag-ikot din ako, naghanap ako ng kung anong center yung pwede sa kanya. Merong home base, mga ilang bahay din. Nakausap ko yung mag-welcome sa kanya, yung mag-aalaga sa kanya as an ECE educator. At tumingin din ako ng ilang centers mismo na malalaki. And we ended up deciding na I think it was good for him and for us na doon ilagay siya sa medyo malaking center where there are more children, marami ring mga staff, and they all can have an eye sa mga bata. Of course, para sa akin, and I thought we never regretted that kind of decision. It worked for us, may not work for you, but para sa amin it was good to put him in that kind of center. So as Mai would say, have a look around, have a feel of everything, and then of course you have to decide eventually kung ano yung works best for both of you.
Okay, thank you.
May question din si Ken?
Thank you.
Thank you. With regard to children with certain developmental delays or even any kind of learning disability, tama po ba yung narinig ko? Am I correct in my understanding that these children are integrated into regular school, in particular sa early childhood space?
Yeah, and then we can utilize yung learning support. So when you go to the center, you tell the teachers as well, and it's really good to be very honest. To be honest with the teachers na ito yung mga na-notice namin, my child has a developmental delay, so that they could actually support you in finding different avenues to be able to give the right support. Yeah. And knowing kung gaano katagal ngayon, medyo mahaba ang pila when it comes to learning support. Always seek yung GP, yung from your general practitioner, yung parang may recommendations and assessment from them, mas mapapabilis instead na kung sa teachers lang. Sa teachers mag-uumpisa. Yeah, so you have your GP and then from the school, and then mas malaki ang possibility that it can move forward faster.
Oh, but my learning support doesn't have to be there right away for the child to start being part of the class, or does it have to be a requirement prior to them being integrated? Or
yeah, I think it's just with our system at the moment, kakulangan ng support workers, education support workers, kaya ang haba ng pila sa Ministry of Education. So the earlier na mabanggit yon, the better. From my experience, it can vary from 6 months to 1 year. I had one child 1 year bago siya nabigyan ng support worker. Yeah. But then, with early childhood education as well, very supportive sila when it comes to children with additional needs. They just have to know. Because for some, from my experience, some families, there's still that stigma about children needing additional support, and there shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Mai.
Walang anuman.
May katanungan po ba? We'll carry on with the primary. Siguro tanggalin ko na yung discussion kasi nagkaroon na tayong discussion.
Well, I think it's better for us na as it comes, we'll answer questions.
We'll answer
Yeah,
questions. So
yeah.
just ask questions. Siguro meron akong idadagdag dun sa nagtanong about learning support kay Ken. So, kasi yung question mo is, kailangan ba yung support before siya tanggapin sa ECE or sa
Yes,
school?
that's
No.
right, Jaja.
No, because ang bata, responsibilidad ng state, responsibilidad namin to be able to natanggapin yung bata despite of what their needs are. And once nandun na siya, then, di ba, saka siya hahanapan ng support.
Yeah.
Yun lang.
The schools
matagal.
will, yeah.
It's
The schools will have their support system as well.
Yeah.
And then kukuha sila ng iba pa.
Yeah, so minsan matagal, like in the primary sector, let's say, yun nga, identify ang need ng bata. Then, yeah, minsan matagal, pero gagawan ng paraan ng school yan. It may not be the best support, pero there will be some form of intervention. For instance, teacher aid or shadow teacher to help out the child, even if it's hindi ideal yung number of hours. Let's say the child needs full-time, let's say a whole day, kasi hirap siya to be independent. Hahanapan niya na school ng paraan. Yun yung hirap because the teacher will have to work with the child. It's not an easy process, and it's not, all rainbows. It's a lot of work from both the parents and the teachers. And so, ayun, but the school will work towards that. I worked in a school that prioritizes a lot of children with special needs, to the point that na alam ng principal at alam ng teachers, priority is to find support for these children. So ang nangyari, kahit kumukuha sila minsan ng funding na from other things like new classroom, hindi magbe-build ng new classroom because mas kailangan ng teacher aid for that year. So ganon, gagawa nila ng paraan because the child comes first. So
all right, thank you, Jaja. Yeah, thank you, Mai.
So we'll carry on with our presentation. So now we're moving on to the primary sector. So that's age 5, slideshow, to age 12. Yan na yung discussion natin. So age 5 to 12. Actually, by law, education is compulsory from age 5 until age 16, before they up to secondary school. I mean, age 6. So at 5 years old, pwede pa siya magstay sa ECE. In fact, by law, at 5 years old, pwede ngang walang ginagawa yung bata. Naka-experience na kami ng parents na ganun. They decided to homeschool, whether that's yung credible na homeschooling or hindi lang ready yung parents na ipadala yung bata sa school. At age 5, hindi pa sila pwedeng habulin ng Oranga Tamariki or ng MOE kung wala pa sila sa school. So at age 6, that is compulsory. Kailangan na nilang pumasok. Now, ang main difference siguro na makikita natin here sa New Zealand and compared to other countries, they start big school or primary school at age 5. And that's for a couple of reasons. Because nga, pinag-usapan ni Mai that the ECE programs have different, they're given differently. So, ang underlying principle niyan is yung Tefariki. But there is not a strong standard of how ECEs are supposed to run. So, iba-iba yan iba-iba. And so, ang gusto nila by age 5 is under na ng Ministry of Education yung mga bata. And it's sort of like prep sa atin, yung age 5. So that's when you prepare them for regular schooling. And at age 6, that's when assessments start, which I'll briefly talk about later. So yan yung parang prep. So year 1, if you look at this sort of guide, they start year 1 when they're about 5 years old. Pag minsan may schools na may year 0, and that's when you join the big school in term 3. So half the year 0 ka muna, and then when you turn 6, you're still 5 years old the next year, nasa year 1 ka na. So that's how it works in the primary sector. Sa primary, sinusundan nila is age ng bata. Sa atin sa Pilipinas, 'di ba? Minsan nga pati primary, elementary, merong mga entrance exams, parang may test bago ka tanggapin. Dito walang ganon. Once you turn 5 or once you turn 6, then you have to move up to the primary. So it's really child-centered. And in some schools, they move on the term of their birthday. I worked in a school 5 years ago where they moved on their birthday, so the week of their birthday, which is a little bit disruptive. So I think ngayon change na nila eh. The term when you turn 5, that's when you move to the big school. In some schools, it depends. Sometimes may dalawang intakes lang, term 1 or term 2, or term 3. So that's what they do. So yung years niyan is, so primary, New Zealand curriculum is what the primary school years follow. And ang primary and intermediate fall under the New Zealand curriculum. So that's from age 5 to 12. And that's year 1 all the way to year 8. And then when they transition to high school, or yung tinatawag dito na college, sa atin ang college university, dito ang college high school. So college is secondary school. They follow the NCEA na curriculum. And later on, we'll be talking about that on a different session. So that's from ages 13 all the way to about 16 and 17. And after that, it's up to the child or the young adult if they want to pursue further education, which is either they go to university or they do a vocational course, or some just decide to work. So hindi na compulsory after that age 16. What happens in primary? I thought pwede tayong magkaroon ng discussion or sharing ng experiences at this point. Ano ba ang difference ng Philippines, ng experience natin sa Philippines, at ano bang nakikita ninyong difference sa education dito sa New Zealand? Sino gusto mag-share? Ako magsa-start. Sa elementary sa Pilipinas, naaalala ko may blackboard, tapos merong officer sa class na naglilista ng noisy girls tsaka noisy boys. Ako parati nalilista. Sino pa may ibang experiences of elementary school or high school? Sino bang gusto mag-share?
May I want to share?
Sige, JC.
Kasi tayo lumaki tayo sa Pinas na very systematic yung pag-aaral from grade 1 to 6 na may sinusunod talaga tayo na curriculum, all of the subjects we have to go through each of it. Now, from the basics of adding, multiplications, whatever it is, meron sinusunod na system kung paano ginagawa o sinosolve yung mga problems. Now, our frustration, me and my wife, is we don't have that here. They do all those stuff in a different way, in a different manners. But napu-frustrate kasi kami ni Pauline kasi yung bata parang more on a play. Well, it's part of the education, but
that's right.
Wala kami ma-foresee na sinusunod na curriculum talaga na, let's say, in mathematics, we do the add, we do the subtractions and everything like that. Now, our eldest son, si Sian, is now 13.
Yeah.
And the base knowledge that he supposedly gained by now is missing, you know? Yung mga simple fractions that on a 13 years old, you would expect that by his age, kung nasa Pinas siya, baka mas advanced pa yung nalalaman niya. But at this moment, wala yung base knowledge, yung mga what they call it, supposedly at this age, he should know by heart. You know what I mean?
Year,
That's our struggle at the moment.
that's right. Sa Pilipinas kasi, di ba parang every term may exam?
Yun nga
Or
eh.
periodical
Oo.
test, may
Yeah.
periodical exam tayo. Dito walang ganon.
Wala.
Hindi, iba din yung, yung assessment, iba yung
Yes.
reporting, iba yung lahat. And I think malaking responsibilidad is placed on the parents.
That's one of it.
Ako.
Yes.
But coming from the school's perspective, the bigger responsibility of the school is to communicate to the parents paano yun gagawin sa bahay. Because alam ng teachers yung sistema ng New Zealand curriculum eh. Pero ang problema, hindi yun ako-communicate sa mga parents. And so
Yeah, you're right.
I think
Yes.
yun yung malaking problema. And then, maraming schools is a no homework school. Ganun
Yes.
yung school nyo, no?
Ganon.
Mostly ganun
Yeah.
eh.
Yes.
Mostly no
You're
homework
correct.
school. So I'll touch on that and I'll talk about it later at kung ano yung pwedeng gawin.
Mm.
And I think what really works is habulin nyo yung teacher.
No, our fear now is when he moves up to college and hopefully the kid wants to go to uni, wala siya nung knowledge supposedly dapat by now. Alam niya eh. Our fear is pag dumating siya ng college and university, he will struggle for sure. He will be struggling.
So, ang
Hi,
big question for parents is that, is my child meeting the expectations of where they of what they should be learning at that level?
Mm.
So yun.
On what path, especially what path he wants to be. Kung gusto niya maging engineer, at least he's concentrating on
math.
math or science or everything. But at his age, in 13, well, he's still young. But yung mga inaaral na sa school ngayon, especially let's say math, they still, nasa fraction pa lang sila sa Pinas. Ang fraction, grade 5 siguro or ano eh.
Well,
Yeah.
We're a little bit left behind, you know.
Ano,
if I could say
Sir,
something.
year 8 na ba siya?
Yes.
13, oo, year 8.
Oh,
Tama.
no, he's a little bit behind.
Go-
Pero may mga pinsan siya sa Pinas. Nasa algebra sila, nasa trigo na sila. Samantala yung anak ko, nasa fraction pa lang.
Go ahead,
No.
Ahmed.
Just to
So
give
yeah, well, it's just our frustration and fear for him when he goes to college and university. He'll be struggling for sure.
I feel you, bro.
Yeah.
Nagtuturo ako, nasa uni ako ngayon, and that's one of the things na nakikita kong problem ng system of education pagdating sa college, yung papasok ng college level, yung high school level and college level.
Yeah.
Tapos papunta ng uni. Kasi may mga estudyante kami na they are not properly equipped, especially with the basics that they need for, well, unfortunately, ang subject na hinahawakan ko ay physics. So,
Yep.
yung mathematics nila dapat medyo
Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
equipped sila. And so, ginagawa namin dito sa anak namin, nakapag-experience kasi kami ng dalawang schools dito sa New Zealand. One is in Auckland, tapos dito sa Wellington. Nung nasa Auckland siya, yung school na pinapasukan ng anak ko, may mga assignments sila.
Yeah.
And may although online, wala naman deadline specific, although sinasabi lang sila na kung matapos nila yung ganito, parang may nare-receive silang from the teacher, ganun. So pero importante meron silang assignment. And the good thing about that is kapag may hindi siya nasasagutan, natutulungan namin siya. So kumbaga nakikita namin din yung growth niya in terms of academics. Ngayon pagdating dito, yun ang na-miss namin kasi yung school nila hindi tulad dung sa Auckland. One experience na nakita ko sa anak ko is yung sa writing niya. Just to tell a story about anak ko. Nag-start siya dito year 4 ata siya. Ito yung writing niya, pinost ng teacher nila, ginagawa ng teacher nila, pinopost nila dun sa CISO yung mga gawa ng mga bata. Yung writing niya, pinost ng teacher, ako yung nainis. Sabi ko, bakit ito pinost ng teacher? Hindi man lang kinorek, hindi man lang itinama yung mga mali ng anak ko, mali yung structure ng writing, mali yung grammar, mali yung ano, tapos pinost ng teacher. Para sa akin, hindi siya ipopost kasi ako teacher ako sa Pilipinas eh. Bago ako mag-post ng something, nako-correct ko muna siya bago ko siya kumbaga i-publicize. So, nung makita ko 'yon, ginawa ko yung anak ko bago siya magano ng writing, sabi ko sa kanya, ipapabasa niya muna sa amin. Tapos tinuturuan namin siya, tinatabihan namin siya, and then we're trying to tell her na ganito ang structure, anak. And then may advantage siya kasi in a way natuturuan namin siya, pero may disadvantage din. Napansin namin, although anak ko na nagsabi sa akin na, tatay, ano ang tawag nito, parang wag mong i-edit. Sabi niya sa akin. Papabasa niya sa akin yung wordings niya, yung ano niya, wag mong i-edit kasi sabi niya, pag nakikita daw ng teacher, gusto daw makita ng teacher yung growth ng kanyang writing. Kasi kung inedit na daw namin, hindi makikita kung natututo siya. So yung mga sumunod, okay, dahil sinabihan ako ng ganun ng anak ko, sabi ko, okay, sige, hindi ko i-edit, pero kung may maituturo ako sa'yo, sasabihin ko sa'yo, sige, ganun kami. Later on, hindi niya na pinapabasa sa akin yung kanyang mga work. Pero nakikita ko na update ko yung pinopost ng teacher nila. And siguro yun nga, yung sinasabi ni Ate Mai, akala natin naglalaro-laro lang sila sa school, akala natin walang structure. Pero one of the things that siguro difference ng education system natin sa Pilipinas tsaka dito is that the kids are the kids' emotional quotient is developed. Their self-confidence is developed. So, yung anak ko, nakita ko yung writing niya nag-improve without me giving her inputs anymore. Pagdating ng isang one time na pinabasa niya sa akin, sabi niya, tatay, just read this. Tapos winar niya ako, don't edit. Don't edit, just read. Okay, binasa ko. Sabi ko sa asawa ko, Nay, gawa niya ba talaga to? Meron pang mga mapapalitan mo pa, pero hindi ko na pinalitan kasi papagalitan.
Pwedeng mag-comment, Med, Kay.
So yun lang, just to close this one. Akala natin wala, pero meron.
Parang drama yun sa akala mo lang
Tapos,
wala.
ito lang, bro, kasi sabi ko sa iyo, I share the same feelings with you. Continue to support your child. Just ask them what what's going on in the school, and then if there is something that you think you can help them with, wag mo lang i-force para hindi madampen yung spirit. Ayun lang po. Okay,
yeah.
Ate Kay, thank you.
Okay.
I-share ko rin lang yung about dyan sa yung writing. Kasi yung anak namin, nakita din namin yung kanyang report, binubura niya. So same as yung kwento mo. And then kasi every term, meron kaming one-on-one learning conference with the teacher. So it's a triadic discussion with the child, kami, tsaka yung teacher. So si Kenneth, talagang inano niya, parang sinabi niya doon sa teacher na, at saka sinasabi rin namin sa anak namin na bakit binubura mo, kailangan i-erase mo yan and then papalitan mo. Hindi dapat na binubura. And then sinabi namin sa teacher, sabi ng teacher na, yun nga, pareho nung sinabi mo na yung development nila, makikita kung ano yung mali, kung ano yung mali ng bata, and then mai-improve para masabi sa kanya kung ano yung improvements na pwede niyang gawin. So sa cultural perspective natin, medyo parang iba, 'di ba? Parang sa Pilipinas, kailangan kumbaga may mga exams or kailangan perfect yung mga grammar natin and everything. So dito kasi, yun nga, matututo sila sa mistakes nila. So yun yung inaano ng school. And then isa rin yung input ko kay sino yung yung nagsabi kanina about yung sa mga maths.
Si JC.
So yun, kasi kami yung ginawa namin doon sa daughter namin, sinend namin siya sa Kumon kasi yung parang kami na yung from our side na tinulungan din namin siya, hindi lang yung, di ba sa school kasi parang sinasabi natin na walang structure, laro-laro lang, hindi tinuturuan ng mga intense maths or yung mga intense. So from our side as a parent, kami na yung nag-send sa kanila sa Kumon. So isa extracurricular maths. I don't know yung narinig niyo na ba yung Kumon?
Yeah.
So yun yung ginawa namin sa daughter namin. Pero parang feeling namin sobrang hirap sa kanya kasi parang pino-force namin siya. Parang sa kanya hindi na fun yung math. Parang ano to? Bakit araw-araw kailangan kong gawin tong sheets na to na yung mga classmates ko hindi naman nila ginagawa. Pero it helps. Kaya yung sa pangalawa namin, hindi na namin siya inano na magkumon. Pero umaalalay kami sa kanya kung ano yung kailangan niya sa math, ano yung kailangan niya sa school. Pero it's just a trial and error lang. Yung sa panganay namin at saka sa pangalawa namin. May mga advantages at saka may disadvantages din. Pero yun, we support them na lang muna yung mga bata. So yun lang.
Yeah. Siguro, if I can say something, siguro, yun nga, for New Zealand, it's more of the process rather than the product. So it's process-oriented rather than product. So tulad ng halimbawa sa painting, minsan pag nag-uwi ang anak niya ng painting, tapos kita mo isang stroke lang na ganyan, parang ano yan? Ano yung dinrawing mo? Instead of appreciating na, wow, you did, painting today. That's really good. I can see you have used these colors. Kasi mas importante yung process rather than the product, because along the process they will be learning those strategies. Yung end game is, kasi sa atin yung nga sabi ko kanina, sa Philippines we are so focused on the cognitive that when we go to the workforce, we don't have the soft skills. We have the technical skills but not the life skills to be able to survive in the workplace in a comfortable and joyful manner. Then work becomes a burden kasi nahihirapan ka doon sa soft skills na kailangan mo. We're highly technical, but the emotional quotient and the social quotient is not there. Yeah, or kulang.
Salamat sa mga nag-add. Sasagutin ko, may i-add ako sa tanong mo, JC. Pero mamaya na. Papakita ko lang muna itong slide.
Okay, go on your next slide. Thank you.
Pero meron akong sagot for that
Yes.
about homework. Kasi isa yan sa main questions ng mga Filipino parents. And
Nakamute ka, Ja.
Nakamute.
Yeah.
Jay, on mute.
Oliver, hindi importante homework.
Tama si Oliver.
Masumot sa likod.
May stand degree.
Sandali, so nasa na ba? So yung main thing about the difference of New Zealand education and sa atin is it's very multicultural and bicultural here. At binanggit na yan ni Mai kanina at ni Kay na yun nga, malaking bagay, ini-integrate lahat ng cultures. And that's why also, except for the private schools, na Catholic schools, most schools are walang religious education. Pero may approach na iba yung approach like in Tawa School where I work, we've got malaki yung values education niya. It's not religious, but a lot of teachers are Christian. And so, but we've got Muslim students as well. And so, yung catchphrase ng Tawa School is be kind. And everyone knows that. Pag pumasok ka, tanong mo kahit sa 5-year-old, what are the 2 words that we always want to hear? And sasagutin nila sa'yo, be kind. And then marami pang ibang strategies, how we teach respect and responsibility. Yun yung main importance. Because no matter how you do your work, when you're older, nobody will want to hire you kung bastos ka. Or, di ba, hindi ka, mahirap kang katrabaho. And then, sa classrooms, yun, mukha talaga siyang naglalaro, pero actually, mahirap i-measure kung ano natututunan ng bata. Sa atin, sa Pilipinas, sandamakmak na test. It doesn't mean that just because ang dami mong nagawa, quality ba yun? yung natutunan mo, or natutunan mo ba just because meron kang 10 sheets na homework na kailangan mong gawin or math drills na kailangan mong tapusin. Gagawin kong analogy cycling kasi si JC cyclist din yan. It doesn't matter kung mahaba yung ride mo. It doesn't matter. It depends on the quality of your ride. So ganun din yung any type of learning, anything that you need to learn, whether it's a skill or it's knowledge, it really depends on the quality. So which takes us to homework, because malaking contention yan eh. May nagsasabi ng mga neuroscientists that the amount of work that you need to give your child is their age times 2 minutes. So kung 7, 14 minutes, max na yan. Once sumobra ka dyan, ma-reach mo yung ma-overload. There's this theory called the cognitive load theory. Basically, pag mas marami ka ng kailangan matutunan, hindi na siya kaya ng brain mo. And that also depends on yung emotional maturity ng bata at yung age niya. So may sort of guideline is, in the primary school, they say your age times 2. When you're secondary school, they say your age times 3. And if you're asking a 6-year-old to do homework for like an hour, I'm sorry, none of that is going to work because you've just overloaded the child. So it really doesn't matter how much you give them. The more you give them, sometimes it's more detrimental kasi wala na sila natutunan eh. It just feels like it's forced. Pero contentious yan eh. Most schools in New Zealand would say, oh, we have a no homework policy. Mainly because coming from our culture and then maraming ibang cultures, like most Asian cultures, grabe. Di ba yung Asian moms nga tawag tiger mom kasi pag nagpa-homework, grabe, or anything na kailangan nila i-practice, let's say piano or violin, sige, 2 hours kailangan mo mag-practice, or kailangan mo mag-practice 1 hour before ka pumasok sa school. Meron akong estudyante na Indian, nag-aaral ng cello, 6 years old pa lang, 1 hour before siya pumasok ng school. So nagtataka ako, bakit late to ng 5 minutes every day? Tapos doon ko lang nalaman na kailangan pala niya mag-practice ng 1 hour every day. So, I mean, we have benefited from that, from our experience. Pero if we're really looking at the holistic development of the child, emotionally and cognitively, and in whatever skill that we want them to develop, then mahalaga that we take in consideration kung gaano kadami ba dapat, how much are we supposed to give? And then, it also doesn't say na kailangan totally wala silang ginagawa sa bahay. I've included here, and I'll share it with you. May nahanap akong article about that. Homework, is it a burden or benefit? Kung busy kayo at nagluluto, meron siyang recording sa RNZ na pwede nyo lang i-play habang may ginagawa, and that could help. And we'll share this with you later. And so let's go back to homework. So I personally agree that, yep, they need to be doing some practice at home. I disagree with, but I'm not gonna call it homework because the term homework, you know, gives you a lot of negative images. Or once the kids say, oh, once you say, as a teacher ako, once you say you've got homework, ang una mo madidinig is, kaso, pag sinabi mo, oh, guess what? This is an experiment and you can do it at home. O kahit isang buong araw nilang ginagawa yung experiment, hindi nila alam na they're actually learning some concepts behind it. Nag-e-enjoy sila. So I think it's also a matter of how we phrase the work. And so yung support that we give them, if we say, oh sige, kailangan mong gawin itong mga worksheets na ito, diyan ka sa kwarto mo, makaka-nood ka lang ng TV after mong gawin yan, then it feels like a punishment. Pero kung, let's say, you're doing it together and it doesn't feel like parang it's just a chore na kailangan nilang gawin, then it completely changes the scenario. And that's why, in the defense of the New Zealand schools, that's a big reason why a lot of primary schools have a no homework policy, because mahirap as a teacher, mahirap kasi malaman how it's done at home. I have had students na sobrang daming homework, usually Chinese, sobrang daming nilang ginagawa sa bahay na work, and then ang daming lessons. Pagdating sa school, ayaw na mag-aral, nagsasocialize lang, daldal lang ng daldal. And because kasi na-overload na din sa bahay. And so, yun lang yung isa sa mga sort of disadvantages kung bakit iniiwasan ng school na sobrang dami. Now, yung another difference is that dito sa New Zealand, walang bumabagsak. And so, hindi katulad yung experience nga natin dati, di ba, merong periodical exam, every term, tapos makikita mo. So, for us adults, it's a very convenient way of measuring, pero is it the most effective way of measuring what someone has learned? Kasi pwedeng, ako as a teacher, pwede ko ituro lang dun sa mga estudyante kung ano yung itetest next week. Pag minemorize nila yon, ma-ace nila yung exam. Uuwi yun sa bahay, makikita ng parents, uy, perfect mo yung exam. Natutunan ba talaga nila yon? Itanong mo next week or 2 weeks from now, kung natutunan ba talaga nila kung ano yung inaral nila doon sa exam. It doesn't guarantee that. And that's why yung information that's given is piecemeal. It may seem that compared to Philippines, oh, bakit at age 13 nag-a-algebra na yung mga kids? To be honest, wala akong natutunan sa algebra. Pero teacher ako ngayon. Na inaral ko yan for how many years, hindi ko natutunan. And because of the way that the information is given and the way that you're forced to learn it, the way that you have to memorize it, and because there is so much that you have to do at a certain amount of time, lalo na nung tayo nag-aaral, wala. Iba pa hanggang grade 6 lang eh. Ngayon, binago na nila yung Philippine education system, di ba? Dati hanggang grade 6 lang. By age 16, age 13, 14, 15, 16, graduate ka na ng high school. Age 20, tapos ka na ng university. Tinapon ka na, kailangan mo na magtrabaho. So talagang overload. Kung matalino ka at kung emotionally equipped ka, then okay yun, it's going to work for you. But it's not the best for all children. Diba? At some point, something's got to give. And that's why New Zealand wants to approach it in a way that's considered measured in all aspects of the child's well-being, kumbaga. So, tests. How are assessments or tests? So, dito nga sa New Zealand, walang bumabagsak. So, ang assessment, for example, dito, kailangan ma-communicate ng school or ng teachers kung ano ba ang natututunan ng mga bata. And then, yun nga yung tulad ng sinabi ni Ahmed, in a school, hindi mo basta-bastang i-correct yung work ng bata. Tuturuan mo sila paano i-correct yung work nila. Tuturuan mo sila paano kumilatis ng mali. So, kami gumagamit din ng CISO. Ako nagpo-post ako ng work na hindi edited. Pero may annotation sa ilalim na so-and-so is learning how to edit their work. Learning how to look for spelling errors, learning how to do this. And so, okay lang yun because as it also reminds us, adults or parents, na it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to be perfect. We don't need to see things perfectly all the time. And so, tuturuan mo yung kids to also be able to track their own progress. Because once naturuan mo sila ng metacognitive skills na yun, it's learning how to learn, then they'll be more independent in the future because it doesn't guarantee yung content ng education or ng curriculum doesn't guarantee what they need to learn in the future. Kasi ngayon, marami ng, di ba, iba na yung information eh. Siguro, i-pause ko dito. Ano ba yung before I go into learning areas, maybe I'll stop for a while. Does anyone have any questions? Wala. Meron pong tanong. JC, dagdag i-add ko lang. So
Yes.
I think minsan, so yung other side ng frustration is also coming from hindi nyo nakukuha from the school or from the teacher yung dapat matutunan ng bata at a certain level. Minsan hindi
Sort of, yes.
minsan hindi nako-communicate yun eh. And minsan I'd say na sa sobrang laki minsan ng class, or kung malaki yung class at iba-iba yung ability, so yan yung downside. It's New Zealand curriculum is not perfect. I'm gonna say that I've been teaching so long that I'm gonna say that the downside of it is kung madami kang estudyante, because nga walang bumabagsak, you're teaching different abilities at a time. Ang year 7 sa school namin, meron dyan, my gosh, hindi pa niya na-master ang adding to 100, year 7, 13 years old, 12 years old. Masyashock ka, di ba? Dapat nagsisimula na yan ng algebra. Dapat nagpa-percentage na yan. Dapat marunong na siya mag-convert fractions to decimals and all of that at age 12, 13. Pero yung iba nag-add pa lang. So in one class, iba-iba talaga yung mga estudyante. And sometimes, syempre, as a teacher, to have to deal with all of that, mahirap yon. So I guess I will hand it over to the parents to go and ask your teacher, talk to your teacher and say, okay ba yung anak ko? Is my child meeting the expectations of the curriculum? What can we do to help? Kasi hindi yan, sa daming trabaho ng teacher, hindi niya iisa-isahin yung mga parents sa class niya at sasabihin niya, oh, your child will do this. Kasi iba-iba nasa iba-iba silang level. Pero kausapin niya yung teacher and ma-appreciate nila yon, ma-appreciate nila because nakikita nila na, itong parents na ito, they're willing to help out because pareho naman yung goals nyo eh. As a teacher, gusto ng teacher na maaabot ng bata yung, or ma-maximize niya yung potential niya. Pero some will be just coasting along, hindi sila na-challenge because iba-iba nga yun nga, ang laki ng diversity ng isang class. Yun yung downside, and that's a reality. Especially kung malaki yung class size. Kung public school, I don't know about private schools, but where I work, so I work in Tawa School, pero I'm in the special character program. We have a Montessori class. So iba yon. Mas individualized yung education, tsaka iba yung approach. And that's why I would say na if you're in a mainstream class, madaling just slip under the radar yung bata. So, yun yung gagawin nyo, kakausapin nyo yung teacher so that you know how you can help. Because as Kay said, most parents will decide to just support their child at home, lalo na kung ang gut feel ninyo is hindi na susuportahan sa classroom. Because possibly ganun yung scenario eh. 'Di ba? So, ganun lang. Sana nakatulong.
Ako, I just want to say something. I don't have a question, but I just want to say that it was a very good information. The one that you just said, Chacha, and I believe well said as well, and I hope and na this will make us open as parents instead of questioning straight away. Maybe just so those information will hopefully help us. Okay, hang on a minute. There must be something in here that I'm missing. And it's always for the good. So I think it's more of we could start trusting the education in New Zealand because, when you're from outside, or especially us in the Philippines, I think more competitive are parents, not really the teacher. The students.
The school, the students too.
Yeah. So anyway, that was all I want to say is that was a very good information, and thank you for sharing that to everyone.
And always communicate with the parents. I get a lot of questions, especially kasi in a Montessori, you tend to attract a lot of migrant parents. So, napaka-multicultural nung class ko at the moment. May German, may Chinese, Indian, lahat. And usually yung mga Asians, yan yung maraming tanong. How do I support my child at home? Para 6 years old, nagbabasa na ng chapter books, tapos worried yung nanay na baka daw hindi enough yung natututunan sa loob-loob ko. Meron ngang hindi pa marunong magsulat ng pangalan eh. Yan, at age 6, pag nakasulat ka ng sentence, okay na yan. Or nakabasa ka ng 3 sentences ng words, ganyan, na phonetic, okay na yan. Tapos siya nag-worry na nagbabasa na ng chapter book. So, sometimes, kasi iba yung experience natin of education eh. Pero meron din na bata, at alam yan ng teacher. Alam ng teacher kung sino yung kailangan ng support. Tapos sino yung average. Hindi ka lalapitan ng teacher kung average yung bata or nag-excel eh. Pero kung sa palagay mo na gusto kong suportahan yung anak ko to do more than what they are doing, just go and initiate that conversation with the teacher. Find out more about the curriculum that always works. And even if hindi nila ma-explain ng maayos, at least kahit papano may makukuha ka naman dyan snippets of information eh. Sa akin parati may nagtatanong, paano ko ba turuan yung anak ko? Ganyan, ganyan. Minsan inisip ko, gusto mo i-homeschool mo? Minsan nakaka-stress kasi ang kulit. Pero okay lang yun. Mas gusto ko yun kaysa yung wala talagang pakialam at all. Yung minsan talaga ang daming tinatanong eh. So pinapadalan ko ng mga different websites or kung ano man yung makakatulong. And kahit papano nakakatulong naman. So I guess yun yung isang pwede ninyong gawin. Kasi yun nga, ang mahirap sa class kasi lalo na kung malaking class, isang lesson plan or a few lesson plans, and then, di ba, some kids will always really slip under the radar. And if you're worried about your child, that's so important to initiate that conversation even before the PTC comes. And so, ayun, importante yun. Meron pa po bang katanungan? Ito, ipapakita ko lang yung kung ano ba yung mga subjects. Kasi sa New Zealand, primary, ang 3 lang yung assessment. So sa report card, ang makikita nyo lang, English, reading, writing, and math. Yun lang. So, syempre, others will ask, paano yung science? Hindi tinuturo. Social science, wala. History, wala. Actually, incorporated yan lahat eh. So yung learning areas ng New Zealand curriculum are, sandali, i-share natin ang screen. So you've got English, arts, health and PE. So yan yung mga sports. Learning languages. Diyan din yung other languages like Tereo Maori, which is taught. Bakit ayaw mag-change? Math and statistics and geometry is included in that. Science, social sciences, and technology. Included na rin ang digital technology. So naging required part yan ng curriculum since noong 2020. So sa primary, some teachers, like sa class ko, marunong yung mga bata gumamit ng green screen. Marunong sila mag-edit ng movie sa iMovie. So, at syempre forced kaming aralin yun. Isang buong year na training para maturuan namin yung mga estudyante na ma-develop yung digital technology skills. So, bakit math, writing, and reading lang yung ina-assess? Because yun yung the goal of education is to get you to become literate and numerate, basically. So, marunong ka mag-isip in terms of mathematical thinking at marunong ka magbasa at magsulat. All the other subject areas like science, social science, history are incorporated in the reading and the writing. So at junior school, year 1, 2, and 3, basics ng math and reading and writing yung ituturo. By the time they're at senior school, let's say yung mga binabasa nila, more on sciences, history, social sciences na, incorporated na yan dun sa reading and the writing. And then, isa pang aspect ng curriculum, so what will you see in your child's report sa primary? So year 1 hanggang year 8, makakakita kayo ng something like this. Nasaan na yun? So, have you seen something like this? So the report card, or at least the school report that you will get from your school should be able to reflect what level they are at the curriculum. So, ito guideline, itong nasa gilid guideline lang yan. From year 1, 2, and year 1 and 2, there should be around level 1. Year 3, level 1 and 2. Year 4 is about level 2. Year 5 is about level 2 and 3. Year 6 is level 3. Year 7, level 3 to 4. And year 8 is level 4. Now, if your child, let's say, is at year 5 and working at level 1 of the curriculum, then you have to worry. Then you have to ask the teachers, ano ba natututunan niya? How do I need to support that? So knowing all these levels would somehow help you. Now, in the junior school, the younger they are, minsan mas matagal for them to get to a certain level. So meron din diyang, we give it a little bit more time to progress through these curriculum levels. Kasi iba-iba naman yung cognitive development din ng mga bata eh. Pero this is just a guideline. And sometimes kung batang-bata pa sila, and let's say, year 2 na yung anak, year 3 na yung anak ko pero level 1 pa rin, you see that there's an overlap here. That's still okay. Don't worry because at some point they'll catch up. And if they don't, you will hear from the teacher early on, I need to support, you need to support your child in this or in that, or kailangan gawin to sa bahay. So, yeah. Another thing na makikita nyo sa school report are yung key competencies. So, ano ba yung key competencies? So, yung pinag-usapan nga natin kanina, sa early childhood, yan yung learning dispositions na tinatawag. Pinalitan lang into a fancy term. Key competencies is basically yung soft skills. Di ba sa work, pagka nag-a-apply ka ng trabaho, meron kayo hard skills, how technical you are, and then yung soft skills is your ability to interact with other people. Okay ka ba? May leadership skills ka ba? Kaya ba mag-manage ng group? So it's the same thing at school. So we have 5 key competencies. One is self-management. So ayan, like the pictures will tell you. Sa bahay, kaya ba sumunod ng schedule yung anak? Naaalala niya ba kung ano yung mga kailangan niyang gawin? O kailangan mo ba siya inag all the time if it's time for this or that? Meron bang time management? Thinking skills, it's the child's ability to ask questions, to reflect on something they've done. Gaano niya ka naaalala? Let's say, naaalala niya ba yung mga ginawa niya? Or it's also helping them with kung may nagawa silang mali, it's helping them reflect on it and be able to, so that it doesn't repeat after. And then using language symbols and texts. So sa school, basically yung lahat ng cognitive skills like reading, writing, understanding how words work, understanding language, or learning different languages. In our case, sana marunong din magtagalog yung mga anak natin. That all is under the key competencies. Tapos yung dalawa pang key competencies na sobrang importante, relating to others. So kaya maganda ang sports program dito sa New Zealand eh. Ako, I really support that kasi hindi lang sports yung tinuturo mo eh. Doesn't matter kung magaling kang mag-soccer. What matters is that, di ba, your ability to work with a group, pagka natalo ka, how do you react to that? Magdadabog ka ba? Or marunong ba kayo mag-take turns? So that's all under relating to others. And then participating and contributing. Yung magandang, the good thing about New Zealand schools also, ang daming opportunities for extracurricular stuff. So like sa Tawa School, may sarili kaming swimming pool. It's really good kasi hindi lang sila tinuturuan mag-swimming, pati yung life, being safe in the water, which is really important kasi like sa Pilipinas, parating bumabaha. Di ba, kailan ba yung Ondoy? Yung Ondoy na lang yung naaalala ko. Yung Ondoy, grabe may mga friends kami na, may mga kakilala namin ng mga namatay dahil hindi marunong lumangoy. Kasi like sa Marikina, yung baha, umabot hanggang sa second floor ng bahay. So, dito at least, yung bata ka pa lang tuturuan ka na mag-swimming para at least masagip mo yung sarili mo kung bumaha. So, those are some things that fall under our key competencies. And that's a really significant part of the New Zealand curriculum. So again, yung emphasis is it's not just the cognitive side of learning, it's all of these things that we might think na hindi importante yan, pero that's really important. Like I had a parent na very stuck pa rin siya on the cognitive side of education, that nung nag-lockdown, parang after nun, parang, ay, nag-work daw yung homeschooling, mas marami daw natutunan yung anak niya. Kasi anak niya medyo dyslexic. So nung nag-homeschool sa bahay, syempre mag-isang bata lang siya, ang daming attention na ibibigay ng parents. So, well, oo, nag-improve yung writing niya, nag-improve yung spelling niya, pero yung other things na hindi mo maituturo because of homeschooling is all of these things, like marunong ba makipaghalubilo yung bata, marunong ba mag-communicate, kaya bang mag-initiate ng conversation, and those things were missing. And so yun lang, and I guess all parents would agree that, you know, they'd like a well-rounded child.